Yo guys, it's Foxen, back at it again with a new What If. Hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, and comment down below future ideas for What Ifs and your opinion on this one. So, Izuku and Shinso both agree to take the UA entrance exams. And so 2 weeks later after that, both of them walk into the UA grounds and, first they begin the written portion, and because both brothers are extremely smart, they get 85% on the written portion without studying at all. So imagine what they would get if they did study. But now it's time for the practical portion, and this time the brothers, they decide to split up to get more points, because if they were together, Izuku would just gonna hoard all the points to himself. And so they split up, start running around the city, and Izuku is basically destroying the robots pretty much easily. He's using words such as push and trip and cut in order to destroy the robots, which are all like low level to medium level words, but it is kind of hurting his throat a bit, but not to the point where he starts spitting out blood. And so by the end of the test, Izuku gets 200 points, and that was the same as All Might got when he was in UA. And Shinso could only use his ropes and his skills, and so he got 30 points, which is also very, very good if you think about it. He couldn't really use his quirk. And so at the observatory, where all the heroes are watching, people like All Might, Nezu, Midnight, and Aizawa are all present, and Nezu makes a comment saying that student with the interesting word quirk, who is he? And Aizawa pulls out his files and says, his name is Izuku Hitoshi. He and his brother got very good scores on the written portion. And Nezu's like, Hitoshi. I remember you telling me something about training someone by the name Hitoshi. And Aizawa says, yes, Izuku's brother Shinso is my student, and Izuku trains with Gunhead. And Nezu's like, Gunhead? Interesting. Well, I think we can both agree that these two are going to Class 1A. Their skills are extraordinary, especially Izuku. His usage of his quirk is very good, and I can see that he's got some combat training. But the thing is, I feel like there's a big drawback to his quirk. He just hasn't really shown it yet. Now, after the exams end, both brothers they walk out pretty happy. They're satisfied. They both know that they passed the test. And so 2 weeks later, after they took the test, the two brothers they come back from their daily training, and they see two letters on the table. They open them and they see that they both got into UA and that they're both in Class 1A. And so they go to pick up their uniforms the next day from like a checkpoint or something, and then like in a week they go to UA, and so they're walking onto the grounds. They're pretty much looking everywhere, pretty nice. And so they enter the classroom, they find it, and basically what they see a blonde kid with spiky hair arguing with a tall kid with glasses. They're seeing a bunch of girls talking to each other. They see a two-toned person, like a guy with two-toned hair, sitting in the corner, some other kids, and they do not see a teacher. And so they both decide to sit in the back of the class, and some girls come up to them, introduce themselves, it was Momo, Uraraka, and the headphone girl, I don't remember what's her name. I don't remember. But, they just, introduce themselves. And so you might be wondering, how can you distinguish between Izuku and Shinso? Basically, Shinso always keeps his hair like up using like gel and a fan or something, but Izuku just keeps it down, doesn't really care. That's the main difference. And in height and everything, they're pretty much the same, identical. And Aizawa, he walks in because he's the homeroom teacher, and he tells everyone to put on their uniforms and in the locker rooms. And everybody goes to the locker rooms, and Izuku and Shinso, they start, putting on their uniforms, and these guys, they're pretty much ripped as hell, and Kirishima's like, bro, y'all natty or something, and you know that happens. And at the test, they come outside, and I don't remember what kind of tests there were, but I think there was like 3 tests: the speed test, the grip test, and the throw test, which is like a strength test or something. So in the speed test, Izuku uses his quirk to say the word boost, which basically makes him super fast for like a bit of a time, for like a limited time, for a couple seconds, and that's how he gets first place. And Shinso, he uses his ropes as sort of like Spider-Man with his webs, and so he gets 6th place overall, which is very good, since he didn't even use his quirk. And the grip test, Izuku just says crush, and it crushes the machine. And he also gets first place. I don't know what Shinso got, just regular grip strength, maybe above average because he's strong. And at the throw, Izuku just says launch to the ball, and it just throws it, and it goes 16 kilometers. I don't remember if that's good or bad, but let's just say that like Bakugo got like 1 kilometer, and so Izuku got first place again. And after this, Bakugo gets very mad. He starts like calling him out, but Izuku just starts coughing a lot because he's used his quirk quite a lot. Because like launch and crush are like quite powerful words, and boost as well. So he just starts coughing a lot, but not to the point of blood. And so Aizawa is satisfied with the results. He doesn't send anyone home, but he doesn't send anyone out of UA, but he dismisses everyone to go home. And the next day, they walk into the class, they sit down, wait, and then they hear like giant footsteps, and All Might bursts to the door, like a hero. He tells them about their hero costumes, and Izuku doesn't really care about his hero costume, so he asked his brother to design him one. And, Shinso, he spent more time working on his brother's costume than his own. And basically how it looks is that Izuku, he has the same mask as Shinso does in canon, but this time he doesn't have those like, weird ropes, and he like also wears like a black tactical outfit, so like cargo pants with like stuff in them, like a black shirt and the black mask, pretty menacing overall, good. It's like a good costume, not like a hero costume, but it's very nice. And he also wears the cap on top, like a baseball cap. And they go to a training area. Everybody makes compliments on each other's costumes, and Shinso's costume is just his mask. He doesn't have anything else. He's just wearing the UA uniform. And some people make comment on Izuku's costume, saying it's very like tactical, very practical, but not very like hero. But Izuku just doesn't care. He really can't care. He can't care more. And they all go to the training area. They get split into the teams, and one of the pairs. So the villains side is Izuku and Shinso. What a coincidence! And the hero side is Bakugo versus Bakugo and Todoroki. So it's Izuku and Shinso as the villains versus Bakugo and Todoroki as the heroes. And Izuku immediately makes a plan. He says that he basically tells Shinso that both of their opponents are extremely prideful, and they will attack. They'll just attack recklessly, and so he suggests that they split up. Izuku will take on Todoroki because Todoroki doesn't really talk a lot, so it'll be hard for Shinso to use his quirk. And Shinso will go versus Bakugo, who talks a lot and doesn't really know about Shinso's quirk, so it'll be very easy. And so at first, Izuku hides the bomb using the word conceal, which is a medium word. He coughs quite a bit, takes the candy, he's good now. But, All Might in the observatory area, he's like, damn, this guy's quirk is practically cheating. And so, Shinso, he goes out into the corridor, and he sees Bakugo already, and he basically says to Bakugo, do you want the bomb? And Bakugo's like, yeah, I want the bomb. And then he just gets brainwashed. That's it. Shinso told him to just sit down, and, he just waits there, just guarding Bakugo, not for him not to do anything. Meanwhile, Izuku already found Todoroki on the upper floors, and they don't say anything. Todoroki just says ice. He doesn't really say what he doesn't say his moves, but he creates an ice spike that goes at Izuku. But Izuku just says shatter, which is, I think it's like a medium to strong word. Already pretty hurts for him. But he says shatter, and after that the ice breaks. After that he says push at Todoroki. Todoroki gets launched back into the wall, but then he does the pain move, and he says pull. And Todoroki gets pulled back. After that, Izuku just grabs Todoroki by the neck, and he just whispers in his ear, "Faint," which is one of the strongest words in his arsenal. And he says "faint," and Todoroki just passes out. But Izuku starts like spitting a lot of blood out of his mouth, because he just used like a combination of very strong words. And All Might sees it, and he says, "Oh, all right, the villains win." At the end of this whole trial, all of the teams, Izuku is the MVP because he made a genius plan, executed it perfectly, minimized the risks while utilizing his quirk perfectly. And after that, he gets sent to the infirmary to check up on his throat, because it's hurting a lot. Even the candy's not really helping now. And so 1 month later, 1 month of lessons later, basically Class 1A gets sent to the USJ, and to practice. And on the bus, everyone's talking, and Izuku and Shinso are just minding their own business, sitting next to each other, talking about stuff, about training and stuff. And then Uraraka asks, everyone, who's the most powerful in this class? And Bakugo, of course, says himself. Todoroki's like, I don't know, maybe me. But then everyone just ignores them, and they look at the Hitoshi twins, because they do know that Shinso is extremely powerful if he can use his quirk, and Izuku's just powerful every time because he can always use his quirk. And they arrive at the USJ, they walk in, everything like that. Kirishima sees all the villains, all the portals appear, and the villains get teleported, all the students get teleported, all get split, and Izuku, Tsuyu, and Mineta, they all land in the water area, and Izuku lands on the boat, and he finds his classmates. He tells them to close their eyes. After that, he says blind, which creates like a blinding light around him, blinding all of the villains who are around him. After that, he grabs Tsuyu and Mineta by the hands and just says float, and all three of them start floating up into the sky. And after that, he looks down and says the word push at all the villains, and all the villains get sent flying in different directions, getting pushed around. And Izuku then just propels himself and the two other classmates to the center of the USJ, and he sees from afar how Aizawa is just getting he's just getting bodied by some weird muscular bird thing, and then he just floats down. He puts Tsuyu and Mineta somewhere safe, somewhere where the villains won't find them, and then he says boost, and speed runs to Aizawa, and as the Nomu was trying to punch Aizawa in the face, Izuku just does a flying sidekick to the Nomu's side, and because he was boosted at this point, Nomu just gets sent flying away. But Izuku lands. He says starts coughing really badly, but he's like, "How everything good, Aizawa?" Everything like that. Aizawa's fine. He just got hand broken, leg broken, nothing too serious. He can handle it, but he's in no condition to fight anymore, and so the Nomu appears again, starts running towards Izuku, but Izuku just looks at the Nomu and says split, which splits the Nomu in half, not horizontally but vertically. And after that, Deku says crush, and this just crushes the two pieces of the Nomu into very small objects, and this kills the Nomu, because if I remember correctly, in My Hero Academia, the Nomu's weakness is the brain. But he basically cuts the Nomu's brain in half with the word split. And Shigaraki, he sees this happening, and he starts raging, saying this is unfair. And this time he says Kuragiri, Toga, let's go. And Kuragiri, he opens the portal again, and a blonde and him, Shigaraki, and a blonde girl go into the portal. And Izuku heard Shigaraki say this. He can't really do anything because he can't really use his quirk at the moment because his throat hurts a lot. And Izuku is shocked because he heard the name Toga. You might be wondering what's so special about the name Toga to Izuku. Well, Toga was the name of his old classmate, basically Toga Himiko, who disappeared about 1 year before the end of high school. And he remembers that she was consistently being bullied because of her quirk. People considered her like a monster or something. Same as them. And basically, Toga was one of Izuku's very close friends. And then she disappeared, and it kind of had an effect on him. He was sad for quite a long time. And before going to the portal, Toga looked back, and she saw Izuku, and Izuku was looking at her straight at her face, and he read the word "help" on her lips, like she was saying "help." And he read it on her lips, and then they disappeared into the portal. And after the villains disappear, like 3 minutes later, all the students are like recuperating. Shinso's fine, everyone's fine. Nobody really got hurt except Aizawa and a couple of other students, but nothing too major. And only after that, does All Might burst through the roof of the USJ, and he starts looking for villains and stuff. But there's no one. And Izuku is like disappointed a lot in All Might and UA for lack of security and just being unorganized. He thought this was like a prestigious place. And they arrive at UA then, after that, and Izuku immediately asks to go see Nezu, and all the teachers can't really say anything because Izuku literally saved a teacher and he defeated a Nomu single-handedly, and he's very mad right now. He's very angry. Izuku's angry, and basically he goes to the director's office, Director Nezu, and he walks in and he says, "Director, I need to talk to you immediately." So Nezu's like, Mr. Hitoshi, what is it? If it's about the USJ, then we are gravely sorry, and we are investigating the issue. There's nothing further I can say about this. Izuku's like, I'm glad to hear that, but that's not why I'm here. You see, when I was still in regular middle school, I had a classmate named Toga Himiko, and she disappeared about 2 years ago. And now, today at the USJ, I saw her as one of the villains. But before she disappeared into the portal, she asked for help. I think she's being controlled. Nezu says, I see. And what do you want us to do with this information? And Izuku says, I want all heroes to be on the lookout. If they see a blonde girl with pretty sharp teeth, yellow eyes, and wearing a school uniform, then you need to try to capture her alive, but without any damage. Her quirk is extremely dangerous and very useful for espionage and infiltration purposes, so it's going to be very hard to track her. But if they do see her, they need to try to capture her without damaging her. Nezu's like, I see. Well, Mr. Hitoshi, I will relay this information to other heroes who are patrolling. You may go. Izuku thanks the director and goes back to the class. He sits down and Aizawa announces that despite all the events that had happened today, there will still be a UA sports festival in about 2 weeks, and he suggests to them that they need to train. And after the speech, everybody starts going home. Izuku and Shinso start packing up, trying to leave, but Aizawa comes to them, and he says that basically you two will be training with me. And Izuku says, but why me? I'm training with Gunhead as usual. And Aizawa says, I already talked with him and he agreed with me. You rely too much on your quirk. How about training without it for some time? Izuku's like, I don't really care, but if Gunhead agreed. And so the next day at the UA training ground, that's where they're training, Aizawa versus Izuku. They're trying to spar right now, like 1v1. And Aizawa activates his quirk, so Izuku will be unable to use his quirk. And basically this is a battle of hand-to-hand combat. And Aizawa, he wasn't really expecting Izuku to be so good at martial arts and hand-to-hand combat. He's basically on the same level with Aizawa in terms of strength, but he lacks in experience, battle experience. And so at one point Izuku lands a very lucky uppercut to Aizawa's chin, and this causes Aizawa to blink, and Izuku can activate his quirk finally, and then he just says push, and and Aizawa just gets pushed into the wall, and automatically Izuku wins. And so basically Aizawa and Shinso, they're both pretty much shocked and amazed at the level that Izuku has. And Shinso really isn't jealous of his brother. He just wants to catch up and prove his strength to his brother. And for the next 2 weeks, Izuku and Shinso train in their martial arts. They perfect their form, as well as Shinso. He gets a lot stronger because his brother's also pushing him in the training. And Shinso, he can hold on about like 5 minutes against Izuku in just plain hand-to-hand combat without quirks. If Izuku is using his quirk, there's no chance. And so it was time for the sports festival now. And in the first competition of the race, Izuku basically just uses the word boost on himself and just speed runs right to the finish line. He gets first place, literally. Now he has 1 million points. I don't remember how many, 10 million or 1 million. At the second competition, Izuku and Shinso, they decide to go to different teams just for fun, And Izuku's just running around, making everyone trip with his quirk. And but at the same time, Shinso is brainwashing everyone, like making them also fall. And at one point, Shinso manages to brainwash one of Izuku's teammates, who falls, and the whole team falls, and the whole castle like breaks up. And Izuku also falls on the floor. And Shinso is just about to grab his headband, but Izuku says push, and everyone just gets pushed out. And in the end, Izuku just gets first place, Bakugo is second place, and Shinso is third place because he managed to grab so many headbands. Now it's time for the final competition, the 1v1s. And the first battle is as canon, DEKU versus Shinso. And because they're brothers and they know what's going on, they want to have a battle, but they don't want it to be unfair. And so DEKU versus Shinso, they decide to go without their quirks and just hand-to-hand combat. This time, Shinso planned to go all out against his brother to show him that he's strong enough to protect himself and that his brother doesn't really need to worry about him that much. And for 2 minutes, an extreme hand-to-hand battle, and Shinso does very, very well this time, much better than he did during the training sessions. He lands a couple of good hits on Izuku, but he's no match, of course, because Izuku just different level, and Izuku wins. Shinso comes extremely close to beating Izuku in hand-to-hand combat. And after the battle, Izuku uses the word heal on Shinso, which is a medium to strong level word. And, he did that to heal his brother, but he caused harm to himself. That'll be bad for him in the future battles, but he doesn't really care. The second battle was Izuku versus Todoroki. Now, Todoroki, because he is pretty smart, he decides to actually use his fire in combination with his ice in order to beat Izuku at his own game. And he launches 2 giant bursts of ice and fire at Izuku, basically going all out. This is already his final move, just at the beginning. But Izuku then just says to Todoroki, stop. And Todoroki just freezes. After that, Izuku says boost to himself. He appears right in front of Todoroki, and then he just says push. Boom, and Todoroki gets sent out of the rain, flying into the wall, crashes, and Izuku wins, but he spits out a lot of blood. And I'm just gonna change it. Basically, I said in the first part that the word stop is one of the weak words, is one of the basic words, but I'm gonna make stop a very strong word, because basically what it does is just stops time for the person that is being used on, and that's pretty strong. That's very strong. It's OP, and so I'm gonna make it a very strong word. And Izuku is spitting out a lot of blood, and he's very damaged from all the use of his quirk. But he has to hold out, persevere, because he wants to kind of win the sports festival, just for fun. And finally, it's Izuku versus Bakugo. Now, this time, Izuku is like, I can't lose, because, Bakugo is like a piece of shit. So, he gotta win. And so Bakugo is super, super mad at this point, because he's seeing Izuku win all these battles. And, with his temper, he's very mad. And so Bakugo just boosts himself right towards Izuku, and Izuku doesn't even have time to react. And so Bakugo manages to land a very, very hard punch with combination with his explosion on Izuku. And, Izuku gets sent flying, almost gets out of the ring. he almost passes out like from the shock. He wasn't expecting that type of power, but he manages to hold himself together, looks at Bakugo, and then like with a menacing tone says the word incinerate. And this creates a giant burst of fire around Bakugo, like hellfire. And this burns Bakugo pretty much to the crisp. Doesn't kill him, because Izuku didn't put all this power into the word. But it does cause a lot of damage to the point that Izuku wins. He stands up with one hand high in the air, and the crowd is applauding and everything like that. He stands there for about 10 seconds, and he's being announced as a winner. But after that, he just flops to the floor. He passes out, and from all the overuse of his quirk, and he wakes up in the infirmary. And basically, after that, one day later, he goes to class, and Izuku gets the most requests out of every single person in the competition. Shinso gets quite many. Todoroki and Bakugo get a lot as well, but not compared to Izuku. Everybody wants him. And Izuku, he decides to intern with Edgeshot this time because he feels like Edgeshot's quirk is pretty interesting to work with, and he wants to see how Edgeshot does his hero work. And on the same day, after he decides to go with Edgeshot, he goes to Mei Hatsume's office and asks her to work on his mask. Basically what he wants to do is basically allow him to just whisper the words he's saying, but for them to be heard very loudly, and for the mask not to be damaged by sound waves. Basically what I'm also going to add to his Deku's quirk, Izuku's quirk, is that the damage done to his throat not only depends on the power level of the word itself, but also the loudness at which he says the word. So if he whispers a very strong word, it won't have as much as an effect as if he like screams or shouts a very strong word. You get it? And so what this mask will allow him is just whisper every word, and for it to be heard as been extremely loud, so the effect will be increased and the damage will be decreased. And Mei Hatsume, she gets the job done very fast in like an hour, and then he takes the mask, tests it out, works perfectly. And the next day he goes out to meet Edgeshot, and Edgeshot makes a comment on Izuku's costume. He's like, "Oh, very nice to meet you, Mr. Hitoshi. I do have to say that's quite a practical and tactical outfit you do have. Very suiting, I must say, very stealthy." Izuku thanks, and after that, the two of them go on patrol, and they're patrolling throughout the city, and then they go to another city called Hosuh City, and at night they're patrolling the center of Hosuh City when they hear sirens and screams and explosions just all of a sudden, and then they see all these Nomus in the streets flying in the air, or like crawling on the ground, or like punching and killing people, and Izuku shouts to Edgeshot saying, "Edgeshot, give me the permission to fight these Nomus." Edgeshot's like, "I trust you, so be careful, don't get hurt out there." Izuku nods and starts fighting. He's basically just destroying, massacring the Nomus, because it's easy work for him. It's nothing like the Nomu he faced at first. So basically all he needs is just a whisper of the word cut or slice. So he's good. He's not getting hurt at all, pretty much. Just a bit of a cough. But as he's massacring these Nomus, he gets a distress call on his smartwatch that he got from Shinso on his birthday. And what this watch is used is for them to communicate between brothers very fast. And so what he gets on his smartwatch is a message for help from Shinso. And this is when Izuku just starts imagining all these scenarios of what could happen to Shinso, and he immediately just leaves Edgeshot, saying that he needs to go help his brother. And he runs to the place where the distress call was from. He can see on a little map on his watch, and he sees Shinso and Todoroki being cornered by a strange man with a sword and a scarf of red color. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this what if. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, and comment down your ideas for future what ifs and your opinion on this video. See you next time.